Hey, everybody, and welcome in. We're going to give everybody a couple of minutes. It's right at the top of the hour right now. We're going to give everyone a couple of minutes to filter in, get yourself situated, a little glass of water or snack or whatever it is you need based on whatever time it is for you. So we'll get kicked off in just a couple of moments. All right. For anybody that's just coming in, we're going to give it about another minute or so, waiting for a few more people to filter in. As you're coming in, if you would like to ask questions as we go, because I absolutely welcome all of your questions, just post a comment. We'll see those comments come through, and then I'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. So, yeah, we'll just get started in just about another minute or so. So, thanks for coming with us here today, and I'll give you a good demo today. All right, got about 3 minutes after the hour. Hopefully everybody's in their seats, hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle at all times. And let's go ahead and get started with breach and attack simulation with AttackIQ Enterprise. Today we're going to talk about what the offering is, who we are, what we do, how we help you solve a couple of particular problems, and then we'll also walk you through a demonstration of the AttackIQ platform. Who am I and why am I walking you through all this? So my name is Joe Mastromarino, Director of North American Sales Engineering here at AttackIQ. Been with AttackIQ for just shy of 3 years. I've been working in security for about 17 plus years or so in different capacities. Seen lots of different things, and all of this kind of leading into this whole purple teaming thing that I do today, mixing together the defenders and the attackers to really help you to understand how your security controls behave and whether or not they're going to be able to stop and see all of the things that you are concerned about. So what are we going to walk through here today? Well, first of all, let's start to talk about the problem that we're solving. We have quite a few, and we really do zero in on a couple of really important ones. What we're talking about here is the state of cybersecurity readiness. We have a couple of statistics here that we do frequently talk about. One of them is that we have financially driven motives that are responsible for about 95% of attacks. External actors are involved in about 83% of breaches. And a really, really interesting one here, and one that we can also kind of work towards here, is that the human element, like misconfigurations, misuse of systems, stolen credentials, things like that, influences 74% of all data breaches, and ransomware accounts for 24% of attack-related activity. These statistics coming from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations Report. How do you assess? This is an important question. How do you assess the effectiveness of your security program? Your people, your process, your technology, the things that you put in place, how you configure them, and whether or not they're actually working. You have two options. One is you can do it, or you can let somebody else do it. For my money, I would rather try to do it myself. This is when we start to then get into the state of cyber defensive operations, because we have all of these controls in place. And there are other statistics that we talk about here as well. One is that security controls fail everywhere, and they're pervasive across the environment. The average CISO has about 75 different controls to manage across an increasingly complex security enterprise. Stuff you have on-prem, stuff you have in the cloud, stuff you have all over the place. These controls fail constantly. Verizon estimates that about 82% of enterprise breaches should have been stopped by the existing security controls, but they weren't. And that these controls fail silently. So when these controls fail, either through their misconfiguration or operational execution or drift over time, they'll fail silently. And you won't necessarily know that these things are no longer operating up to your standard. And then, of course, no one tests enough. There's not enough apparatus, opportunity to be able to say, yeah, let's test out my EDR, let's test out my firewall, let's test out my DLP solution using real tactics, techniques, procedures. Now, how do we get to somewhere better? Because I've stated the problem here. There's a lot of things that can happen, and we're just not testing enough across our control base. So how do we get to somewhere better here? And this is something that we've thought about a lot because we've been doing this for quite some time. We've been doing this for about a decade of breach and attack simulation. And a lot of this is where organizations need to go. So how do you get to a place where you're validating the efficacy of your security controls, you do it continuously, and do so in a way that's not breaking your budget? Because you've already spent a lot on your security controls. So how do you make sure that you're getting the maximum value out of all of these things? You can think about this on a maturity spectrum. But fundamentally, it's about starting with the testing objectives that your organization has. You automate it, you expand it, and then you incorporate the knowledge of threats into that testing. And that helps you guide the type of testing that you're doing. Let's use some intelligence. Let's use some risk-based decisions on the things that we have and what we're concerned about. So you want an automated, threat-informed approach to your testing that is both adaptive to your unique needs and grows with you as your organization matures. One of the things that I would also say here is that I said this in the beginning, I'll say it again for anybody that's come in a couple of minutes after. If you have any questions at all over the course of this conversation, over the course of my demonstration, just post a comment here. We'll see those comments flow in, and then I'll address those as they come in and I get an opportunity. So how do we make something that's more adaptive to your unique needs and grows with you as your organization matures? The way we've laid this out here, you can visualize it using the NIST Common Security Framework Model, which provides a high-level way of assessing a current level of cybersecurity capabilities. Now, this is NIST CSF, not NIST 853, two totally different things. What we've done is we've ported the NIST CSF over to our own understanding of how organizations approach security control validation, which, like I said, we've been doing this for quite some time with a lot of different customers across industries, different sizes, all over the world. So that means that you can now take these principles, apply your understanding of risk, apply your understanding of your policies, what you have in place, and then how does your organization do against all of these? Now, smaller organizations might start at the partial stage over there on the left. The testing is ad hoc, mostly reactive to events in the news, maybe something your CISO saw or something on your board. And you generally do it once or twice a year. Risk-informed organizations typically have a small degree of automation, and they're focused on starting to develop some processes for testing. They understand what assets are risky and what they need to do to secure those. This is typically where we see larger organizations start. The focus here is on identifying what we call security control drift. I had mentioned that term once already. I'll keep talking about it too. The drift is that your security technologies consistently detect and prevent the basic things that they're supposed to over time, but they may not see all of these things over time. Now, that can happen as you roll out policy changes, make architectural changes, week to week, month to month. These things can happen, and it happens slowly. And like I said before, silently. At the repeatable stage, this is where we want to get most companies comfortable and where we see the best outcomes. This is where you automate most of the security control testing, expand the validation beyond just a handful of devices, and start to think like an attacker and begin to incorporate the testing for different adversaries. Every organization is different. And so the key to recognizing which areas of the model your organization is at. Not every organization will reach an adaptive posture. You see that one all the way on the right. And they don't need to. They don't have to. The key is identifying your unique problems, your risk tolerance, and how testing can help you to reduce that risk as an organization. So always think about these things. Now let's talk about how we can really get you to a better place, especially using the AttackIQ platform. Now, the next thing I'm going to talk about here is how we can use that platform to start to get there. This is the AttackIQ breach and attack simulation portfolio. Now we have two of the offerings that we have there on the left. That's a Flex and Ready. We're not going to talk about those today. We have many other webinars, and we will do other webinars on those as well. Where I want to draw eyes today is all the way on the right at AttackIQ Enterprise. Now, this is the platform that we have always sold. From the beginning, this is the platform we've been building. Everything else is also built upon this. This is our breach and attack simulation platform. It is the full platform, as in you have the full library of content, you have full customization, full automation as well, everything that's there in the platform. That is all going to be there, along with especially the different service offerings that we have to help you really bring this thing online and keep it moving, keep it operating. Now, what is it that we do? If you've never seen breach attack simulation before, if you've never seen security control validation or even AttackIQ, I just talked about, okay, this is the name of it. This is what it is. Let's start to talk about how we operate. So on the left here, we'll start to talk about the different types of content that we have. What we do, these adversary campaign emulations, security control testing, adversary research. The security control testing, adversary research, what we're doing is we're working with not only the cyber threat intelligence that we have, we work with a series of open source, closed source intelligence. We're also working very closely with the MITRE Ingenuity organization. We're one of the 4 founding research partners of the MITRE Ingenuity Center for Threat Informed Defense, which is really where MITRE Attack is. And we have been there for quite some time. We have helped author, review, especially a lot of the programs, the projects that they've had. And we have a unique view into the database of the different tactics, techniques, procedures, or TTPs that the different attacker groups are using, that the different malware groups are using. So we're able to deeply incorporate all of that knowledge into our platform. So what we do is we build out these different types of bits of content. So when we take a look at adversary research and we take a look at security control testing, as well as how we build out these adversary campaign emulations, we're reverse engineering the malware that we see, especially the different types of ransomware that we see. We'll take a look at the different types of attacker campaigns that are happening and take those apart at a TTP level so that we can create content for you that you can then use to test all of your controls. And this is constantly being worked into the platform. We work in a truly agile shop. That is, we are pushing out content once every 2 weeks to the platform, as well as software updates. And one thing that will proverbially pop the stack for us and make us get something out faster is if we see a high CISA alert on something. Then that will trigger us to have usable content in the platform for you within 24 hours of that high alert issuance. How do we do it? A few different ways. So we have this atomic testing. Now what we do is we operate with test point software that is sitting inside of your environment. You place these on production assets in your environment. I'll tell you why we use production assets. You place them on Windows, Mac, Linux boxes in your environment where you want to test the different controls that you have around. Some examples of the things that we test: your email controls, firewall, your WAF, your EDR, your SIM. You even have the logs in for all the different controls that you have here, and your DLP. Let's run through these different atomic tests, the different TTPs that the adversaries are using, attack flows or attack graphs for the different types of adversary campaigns. So we can run through an entire campaign that an attacker would have done using the scenarios and these atomic tests. Can we chain together different types of behaviors so they can look like ransomware is operating inside of your environment, and you're doing this in a production environment? We do this all safely because what we're doing is we operate philosophically on a do no harm, which means that all of the scenarios, that's what we call those individual atomic tests, those actions, all of those are going to operate in such a way that we are not going to take any really overtly malicious actions on a box. So we won't be detonating live malware or running a denial of service attack or trying to break or crash a machine or anything like that. Any files that we write, registry keys that we change, processes that we start, everything gets backed out, reversed, deleted. Once we're done, we clean up after every one of our scenarios. So that's why we say these are safe to run in production, and you really should be running in production because that's where you're going to have the best possible test of all the controls that you're running today. And then also these packet capture replays. So that's part of that. That's also part of the firewall. And there's a few other scenarios where we could run this stuff as well, where you can run packet captures north-south, so you can test out the boundary that you have right at the edge. You can even test your internal microsegmentation. Do we have traffic that can flow between different areas within our network using these different types of capabilities? And there's plenty more, but I wanted to show you that this is one way that we do so. We operate really on a SaaS model. So the test points are checking in with software that we have in the cloud, and then it will receive all of its instructions from there, do its job, and then send back the results. If you are in such an environment that you need an on-prem, and on-prem is available, but most of our customers are going to be completely fine with the SaaS offering. So that's why we say that Enterprise is our flagship product. It is a comprehensive breach and attack simulation platform. And what I was saying, it provides you the maximum amount of flexibility, customization, and we continue to support you all along the way because, of course, there are services that come along with this. Let's help you get this thing up and running. Let's train you on this. And let's give you regular check-ins to make sure that you're properly operationalizing the platform and using it, getting not only value from our platform, but with every other control that you were trying to test with the platform. These are other things that I mentioned already, the MITRE attack alignment. We do have a very robust REST API available with the platform. So between taking actions on the platform, getting reporting out of the platform, all of that is already built in, and you have that right out of the box. With all of that said, I'm now going to start taking you through a demonstration of the platform here. So I don't see any questions yet. That's fine. So let's go ahead and get into the demo portion of this. I'm just going to move my screen like this and like this. Make sure we're still here, that the platform didn't automatically log me out. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to show here is an overall demonstration of the AttackIQ Enterprise platform. I'll show you where all of the content lives and where you can go to get all of the content that's there. I will show you how you can navigate it easily, how you can configure things in platform and how easily you can do that, as well as how you can pull results out. So let's have something that's already been run, and then let's take a look at some of those results at a micro level. We can take a look at the reporting on a macro level and the different types of capabilities that the platform can offer you. There'll always be more that we can talk about, and there's always more questions that we can answer within the time that we have. So we're always happy to take more of those questions. If you want to place them here, that's fine. If you want to reach out afterwards as well and have a deeper conversation about your particular use cases, we're always happy to field any of those questions that you have and make sure that we can solve your problems. As soon as you log into the platform, you're greeted right here with this, this home screen, as you can see it. It's always going to present some of the latest things that are happening in the platform right up top. So this is what I mentioned before. So these alerts that you see up here, if there was a high CISA alert, we will place it right here under this What's New section. And these things can usually happen out of band with the regular release cycle. So that's what I said before. If something happens, a high CISA alert, you will see usable content here in platform within 24 hours of that issuance. And then you'll even get buttons. Not only are you going to be able to see it on our blog, and I'll open that up so you can see that we have our writings here as well. And you can see this, by the way, if you were to go over to the AttackIQ, this adversary emulation section, you'd be able to see all of these different types of writings that we have. We give you our write-ups. We give you the complete sequence of the attack, exactly how this works. So this is even just more content that you have available to you. Whether or not you're an AttackIQ customer, we do like to give back to the community. I'll show you other ways we do that later too. But you can then take that content and you can press this button and it will immediately start to put together a test for that type of threat that we have. Some of the more recently updated templates that we have here, these are just essentially take those scenarios, those individual actions, put them together into what I like to call a use case. That's these assessment templates that you have here. And all of these get frequently updated, and those updates get pushed right to you. I take a look at my asset status over here. Let me just move this down a little bit because I know my face is in the way. These asset statuses over here, how are all of my test points doing? So my Windows machines are almost all up. I got a couple that need a little bit of attention from me, but I know which ones those are. My integration manager. Now, what this does is whenever I run something on one of my test points, I want to know whether or not there was evidence of that control operating. And that's what my integration manager does. It reaches out to my firewall, my EDR, my SIM, and ask questions of those. Hey, did you see those attacks that I just ran? And if you did, send me back some evidence if you would, please. That's what the integration manager is there for. Deployed on your prem, deployed in the cloud, hosted by us, whatever you need to be able to do, we can make those things happen for you. It's really wherever it makes the most sense for you to query those controls that you have. My assessment runs, am I even using this platform over the last 30 days? Are we doing stuff here? So it's always going to show you that. Whenever I want to get to something, I'm just going to go over to the menu button over here in the upper left-hand corner, and I'll be able to get to all of my content. I would start with my content library over here. Scenarios, think again, those atomic tests that we're running. I like to call those the ingredients to my recipes as well. And the assessments, of course, being those recipes. So let's take a look at the scenarios for a minute. So if I were to click down here to scenarios, I'll be brought right over to here in my scenario library. My scenario library, hang on, I'm just going to go into my scenario source, my factory scenarios. There we go. Actually, I probably just need to refresh that screen. There we go. My scenario source, factory scenarios. There we go. So I got about almost 4,700 scenarios here between all the things that we have created, as well as for those atomic tests, as well as the PCAP replay ones that I mentioned earlier. There's a few of the capabilities in here as well. Like I can send phishing emails using this platform. I can send out malicious web requests using this email and test out my web application firewall. Lots of different things that I can do here. And I'm going to show off a couple of those over here as well. Let's take apart one of these scenarios here for a moment so you can see what makes this up and how you can understand the content that you're trying to run here. I'll start with this dump SAM registry hive via the reg save command, and I'll click on this scenario right here. Each of these scenarios will carry a scenario summary, a description. Show me a little bit about what this is trying to do. So it will explain what is this scenario and what is it trying to do. My prerequisites. How do I run this? How do I make sure I do this properly? How do I know what success looks like? My prevention or failure criteria. So that's how I know whether or not I was actually able to do the thing, right? And then more details, if there's any more details that are going to be assigned to this as well. One thing to note is that for any of these scenarios, regardless of if it's this one or any other, this download source code button is always here. You can take a look at that anytime you like. Full visibility that we have into all of the scenarios that we run. All of these are written in Python, and you can feel free to inspect that anytime you like. And we also publish in the platform all of our frameworks for everything that we do in Python. So it's always available to you. How do we build this? So this is built off of another scenario called command execution. And the way that we then configured it was using the parameters that I see up here. I can see that this is exactly the way that AttackIQ has been running this particular scenario. So how does this run? Where does this run? How do we know what success looks like? And is there a custom cleanup command for what it is that we do here? So that's why I said all of this is right here ready to run. One other thing that I will mention here as well is that we have this mitigations section that's over here. And this is great, especially for any of the behaviors that we are running. So I see this thing, and this is how we would run the attack, but how would we defend against it? How do we make sure that we have enough telemetry here to stop and see this kind of attack? And that's what these mitigations are also here to tell you, because I'm a big proponent of this concept that we have here called purple teaming. And so you have your attackers, you have your defenders, everybody comes together to figure out, well, what's the best possible test for this? What do we have? What are we going to try to do? And this is a great way of being able to understand what are the defenses that you need to also be able to see and stop this. So these mitigations, these are descriptions that we have written for all of these. And of course, if we have any references, we tell you what the references are, but we will give you information about how to do this type of mitigation. And another thing that I really like here, other than the observables, and this is of course how we're doing it, the MITRE mitigations is M numbers that match the T numbers for those TTPs, and the detection rules. This is huge here for the platform, because what we're doing is you take these detection rules. Now this dumping of sensitive hives via reg.exe, which is exactly what we're doing here. I click on that detection rule. I now have a Sigma rule. So if you're unfamiliar with the Sigma project, it's really these universally translatable rules that you have to describe behaviors that are happening. And if you want to take that and port it over into whatever the platform you want, this is all really publicly available. And we are continuing to not only use this in platform, but to contribute to the Sigma project. So you can take one of these rules. I can copy this, I can download it. If I wanted to rapidly translate it over into another one of my solutions, say if I wanted to be able to see it in CrowdStrike, or I want to create a search within Splunk to be able to see this in my SIM, all of this is here and available to me. So that's great. Now I have a better understanding of how to defend against this. I can also see within this context, this platform, what is the source of this scenario? So this command execution, again, a full description of what this scenario is and does. If all of the other same rules apply. If I want to see other models of how AttackIQ did this, these are just other different ways that AttackIQ is using this same scenario to customize different types of things for me to be able to use. And then if I want to take one of these scenarios, let's say I wanted to change what this is and say, I don't want this role name to be AttackIQ remote desktop. I just want it to be, my company remote desktop. And I want to save that as my own scenario. I could do that. It's one of the easiest ways of customization we have here on the platform. Take some existing scenarios, make some changes that fit better with your environment, and then save that as your own scenario. Now you can use that whenever you want. And then finally, how we can navigate this library very, very easily is I have the ability to take the tags that are here. Now these tags you see on the bottom, these are going to follow me through the entire platform. It'll be for tactics, techniques. If there are sub-techniques that are applicable for this, all of this is here. I can now use this to quickly and easily search, maybe based off of some cyber threat intelligence that I have. So for instance, I may be concerned about, because my controls are not necessarily tuned for this type of tactic. So I could take a look over here on the left-hand side for the discovery. That's the one I wanted. So discovery. I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about one particular threat group that I've been reading about a lot, because they use a lot of living off the land techniques. And I'm a little concerned about my own capability to stop this and see this, which is Volt Typhoon. Now I'm able to see all of the content that matches through the tags, that attacker group, that tactic. And I've narrowed it down from 4,700 scenarios to 24. Much easier for me to work with. So that's how I can navigate some of that content, but also being able to just say, you know what, I want to pull something off the shelf and use it. That's what these assessments are here for. So I can take, for instance, let's say, again, I have either CrowdStrike, and I can use Sentinel-1 as another example as well. Probably got hit with this because I've just been sitting on this a little longer. Sentinel-1, there we go. So I have different types of baselines for different types of products. So there's one for Sentinel-1. I have another one here for CrowdStrike. I have another one for Microsoft Defender. I have another one for these baselines is really what I'm looking at. And I have another one for Carbon Black. So there's other ones that I have here. And really what we're doing is we're organizing this content in such a way that I'd be able to see within all of these tests, look, here's my scenarios for this. These are all the things that I should be stopping and seeing, preventing and detecting, right? So very easy for me to get a hold of that. Although where a lot of my customers are probably going to get started is with a security controls baseline. And what this one does is it takes a broad swipe across your security controls. You can see within these tests here, I have endpoints and network security controls all represented in one test. Rather, one assessment. I do see that question there. I'm going to hit that in just a moment. So what I can then do is I can just click the create assessment button off of really any one of these, and it will say, okay, yeah, you want to create a new assessment? No problem. I will take this content and just put it up for you so that you can edit it and make sure that it works properly before you run it. So I'm now going to go into that security controls baseline. I'm just going to take a quick glance over at the questions here, so I make sure I answer those before I head on. Using these guidelines, can I create use cases in a SIM? So as long as you're able to take in those Sigma rules and be able to test against those, yes, you can. So you can take those Sigma rules. You can take other things in here as well, things like the observables that we have. So what we're going to do, and I'm going to show this in another context as well. We'll show you the exact way that we ran an attack on a host at that given time. So you can search across your SIM for that kind of evidence. And one, are you even bringing in those fields for the log sources that you're concerned about? And do you have those logs being recorded? Are they being properly indexed? Are they feeding any correlation rules that you want? So showing you the different ways that you can then help build out whatever those use cases are, whether it's I need the logging to be there, or I need to build out the correlation or safe searches or anything like that, based on your SIM and what your capabilities are. So hopefully that answers your question. The short answer is yes. So let's take a look at that security controls baseline. That's this one right here, which I just have named for me because then it's easier for me to find. What we then do is we then automatically populate all of this content right here for you. So you can say, okay, now I want to work with this. I can configure any one of these scenarios anytime I like, because all I need to do, and I'll pick on DLP as my example here. Click on the three dots on the right, and I click on Manage Scenarios. I now have 3 different ways to test against DLP. Exfiltrating in a zip file, text file. I can see it's over HTTP or over DNS. This is good. You know what? I want to add in one more scenario that does exfiltration over ICMP. I want to add that in here as well. Totally fine, because as I always like to say, this stuff is written in wax, not stone. So I can add this scenario right here. Click on the Add Scenarios button right up on top. I did that again. I'm just going to refresh every one of these pages every time I come in now. And where's my DLP? There it is, Manage Scenarios. All of those error messages are because I got timed out. So I refreshed right before I got into this demonstration. That's why. So I add my scenarios right here, and I'm presented with this very familiar looking screen. I was just here. So now I know how to find this stuff. I can also do a very quick text-based search, and I can just do exfiltrate, and maybe it's right up here. Yeah, there it is, exfiltrate files over ICMP. I check on that box, I click on Review and Add, and I add the scenario. Super easy for me to add in scenarios. And I can say, oh, crud, I didn't want that one. You know what? Let me just get rid of it. So I click on 3 dots again, and I click Delete, and that guy is gone. I can also make changes to the scenarios that are here, those configurations, those parameters. I like picking on this DLP one as an example because it has some really powerful options. Like I can choose to have the platform automatically generate a file for me that I'm going to try to exfiltrate that looks like credit cards or socials or personal data, or I can create a custom data model right here inside the AttackIQ platform and have it use that. Or I could just use my own file. Entirely up to me. I can choose to not clean this file up afterwards. And if this were to have gotten out, I can take the file over to my DLP admin and say, hey, please fix the policy. This file got out. It should not have. I have control over how the file is formatted, how it's compressed, encrypted, encoded, all of those fun options I have right here. And if I do something that's really cool and I want to save it, I, of course, can save it. And once again, this is my own scenario that I can use wherever I want. So that's the customization of scenarios that are here. The assets. Now, I'm going to talk about this for just a moment because I didn't touch on this too much, but I want to make sure this is clear. These assets that are here, these are endpoints inside of my environment where I have the test point software installed. I choose a selection of these machines. I don't have to have them pervasive across my environment. In fact, most of my customers don't. What we do have is a good representation of the security control, permutations, combinations, the different types of policies. All of those are represented within this asset stack. And then you pick the assets. These are the ones that I want to run over here. And you can tag them also separately to be able to say, yeah, these are ones that represents maybe some different locations, different offices, different parts of the network, different roles within my organization. So I make sure I get a good swipe across the controls that I want to be able to test here. So all of this is represented, no problem. I can select the ones I want. I can run them on multiple assets at the same time, all totally fine. So once that's all been set, I can choose to run this either on demand or I can schedule it. If I choose to run it on demand, I click Run Now. It's going to give me a fair and final warning that says, hey, you're about to do stuff that is going to trigger alerts and alarms inside of your environment. We're not going to do anything really lasting or harmful, though, which is fine because that's exactly what we're here to do. We want to test out all of our people and process and our technology. I can also choose to have this file right here. This is a CSV file of all of the attacks that I'm about to run on the systems right now. I can choose to give this over to my SOC lead or whoever else is watching the switch. This way we don't execute the call tree when we are executing these scenarios, or maybe we are. It's entirely up to how you want to run these tests, right? So that's how it's run that on demand. I can also schedule these tests, and I can have this run on a daily, weekly, monthly cadence, whatever I want that to be. It's entirely up to me. What do the results look like after we've run this? Now, take my own lesson here and refresh my page. These results will give you over time, how are your controls performing? Using this histogram I see in front of me, this is, again, that security controls baseline. I can see over time that my yellow line, this one over here, represents my prevention percentage, how much of this stuff did I stop. The gray bar is how much of it did I detect, did I see. And then the green bar is either or, I stopped or I saw, prevented or detected. I can choose any of these results anytime I like. I'm going to pick up my latest set of results. I could even go back and cross-compare between a few different results and see what changed between last month and this month. Again, identifying that security control drift, what has changed. Makes it very easy for you to do that. I'm going to pick on one of these in particular, and we'll take apart some of those results, like this dump browser passwords using lasagna. We did prevent this, and we detected it 2 different ways. Let's show you how. I click on that one, and I'm able to see. And I, of course, can take a look anytime I hit these 3 dots and take a look at these scenario details. It will explain to me exactly what the scenario is and does. We try to enable you and educate you at every turn. So what happened here? Let's take a look at what happened on the endpoint at the activity detail level. This is what happened from the test point's perspective. I downloaded and staged this properly. That's part of what the agent has to do. It does need a small area for staging. Then what happens is anything that we're trying to stop, we're trying to see, all of that happens outside of that area. So yes, we tried to run this and we tried to execute it right out of here. But we couldn't continue executing anymore. Most likely blocked by security control. Now the test point software has no idea what controls are around it. This is by design. That's the integration manager's job to figure out what control stopped it. But we're going to say in this case that yes, it was prevented. The detection details. This is where integrations come in. And what happened here is I saw it 2 different ways. I saw it come in directly via Falcon. And if I were to click more info, I'd get pivoted directly over into CrowdStrike, so I could see that detection there. And I can see, if I look at more details here, I take a look at my indicator. And the indicators that I was looking at, it's this exact same directory on this host with that binary name on it. So yes, we did match this properly. So I know that this event was matched to this attack. I can also see it via Splunk. So this is the SIM integration that I saw here. So show me that I have the logs that go along with this as well. I take a look at the view more details. And again, my D6829, that's the one I'm looking at right here. I spent entirely too much time looking at logs before I came to AttackIQ. I spent about 6 years in SIM before I got here. So I am used to looking at logs, but you have this option here as well if you want to pull logs back into your AttackIQ and take a look at stuff that way. So this is how I show two different ways of pulling back the detection. I like doing it, even though it almost looks duplicative. It's not, because you have the event from your EDR directly, and then you also have the evidence that you have the proper logging pipeline to bring that EDR event into your SIM. So if you have a correlation that's built on that, you know that all of the ingredients exist for you to be able to make those correlations. I can take a look at my observables. My observables are also going to tell me, and this can also speak to that building use cases in your SIM. This is exactly the way that we ran this attack on this host at this time. So all of this is here. And you can take a look at that same thing again, that mitigation section that I showed you earlier. I can show the exact same thing here for this don't browse your passwords using lasagna. All of this is here, from the general mitigation recommendations that we have to the different types of Sigma rules that can be used for this. And this is another great way of being able to take a look at the micro level details of any of the behaviors that we are doing with this. So we would see that for all of the different types of attacks that we ran here across the endpoint, across the network. I do want to show some other capabilities as well, quickly touch on those before I get into the reporting, and then I'll go into to any last questions as well. Not only could we do this stuff because we were looking at those scenarios really in isolation, as it were. Let's now take those different types of attack scenarios and place them into what we call an attack graph. This is the emulation of a piece of ransomware, specifically Riceta ransomware from this particular campaign. Now, what we do is we take those same scenarios that we were just looking at, and now let's take a look at those scenarios in a sequence. Each of these white boxes that you see over here represents one of those individual scenarios that we were just looking at in the prior example. I'm just going to give myself a little bit more screen real estate over here, and zip, that gives me more real estate. Perfect. Each of these attacks is also broken down into the different stages with the attacks here. So now take a look at this first one here, this initial access and execution, and the scenarios that are here. It's first, and let me make this a little bit less of an eye chart, it's trying to get the Riceta sample through the network and to the endpoint. How? Step 0, let's try to get that malicious sample to memory. So let's get it right past your network control. The lines that exist between the scenarios indicate what happens next based off the prevention status. So this red line over here on the right says if it were to be not prevented, we're going to move on to see if we can get that same sample to the endpoint, the file system, and see if your EDR is going to properly operate here. But whether or not we're able to prevent this line coming out the bottom, we won't predicate an entire attack on one fairly brittle indicator being a file hash. So let's move on. And we'll try to get that Cobalt Strike beacon sample to the file system. Again, don't want to stop the train on the hash. So step 3, step 5 is where it also gets interesting, because I need to do some injection here. And I'm going to try to do it 2 different ways. The code injection via load library and create remote thread. If this scenario does not work, this is my prevention line, then and only then we will try to move to step 5 and do reflective DLL injection. Because just like an attacker would, I'm going to go around, under, through, over a wall, whatever I need to do to get to my objective. And we can reflect the same thing here. So try different scenarios for the same type of tactic. And that's what this is doing here. If that is able to move on, then great, we can move through the attack. But if it doesn't work, we're going to terminate the attack right here. These results look different because now it's going to flow through the rest of the attack all the way through to impact. And the same logic applies throughout. When I take a look at this run, this looks different because now this is a very binary output that says either you stopped the attack or you saw the attack or you didn't. Prevented, detected, or not. I'll take a look at one of these results here. And now we can see that yes, we prevented it, but where? I can see here, and this is the example that I would post of, look, step 3, step 5. Step 3 didn't work. It was prevented. So we went to step 5. That worked. It wasn't prevented. That's why we're able to continue on through the attack. I scroll out a little bit. I take a look at the rest of the attack. I'm able to get all the way through to impact when I am prevented from doing scheduled task execution, and then that's where I said the attack got stopped. But I'm only a couple of steps away from file system encryption, which is super dangerous, and I want to make sure I stop that. So let me take a look further back in my steps here and see what I can do to prevent that. The good news is that all of these scenarios that we see here, all of the same rules apply that we were just looking at. So how do I read my preventions, my detections? All of that is here for me. So that's how I emulate those attacker group campaigns, those pieces of ransomware, malware, all of that is here for me. And that content has already been built, or I can build my own. All of that is here for me. There are other things that I can do here on the platform as well. So for instance, if I wanted to send these, a series of malicious looking emails, I could do that as well. So I can use the platform to send emails to, here I could send Mimikatz, I can send an iCar file. I set it up through an email address on my end that I want to test out the policies that are there, send those malicious attachments, those malicious links as well, and see how we would react to that. Can I get these emails through? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to take a look at that email. I'm going to send it through. So in this case, you see I sent it through. It went to my my email address, but then I go and validate that email was actually there. And I was take a look at that and I could see it, but the email doesn't match, which means that these emails are now different. So if your control altered that in some way, maybe it removed the file, removed some of the text in there, tried to defang it a little bit, if you will, all of that is there, and I can test for that using the platform here. So it's another thing that you can do to test is see whether or not your updated email gateway policy is going to stop this latest phishing attack that you just saw. So another great thing to test there. You can also see the different types of, and this is testing out your network controls based on these PCAPs that I saw here. This is something else that I was doing. My packet capture replays. This is another super powerful thing that I can test for. I take a look at two different endpoints and see whether or not, here's one, that I can see. You see this looks very, very similar, except just a little bit different, because what I do is I can select two assets. One of them being a hosted test point that we have on our infrastructure, but you can have two of your own test points, that's fine. And then using a particular boundary on a host that you have internally, let's replay this PCAP right here. So this file stealer exfiltrating files. I take a look at this from both sides of the conversation. Can I see all of that traffic? Can I stop any of that traffic? And that's what we're looking at here, is a way to then run those PCAPs against your environment. One more thing that we can do, because I've gone through a whole lot of capabilities here, is I also want to show off some of the reporting that's here too. So I would take a look at some of this reporting as we would pull it back a little bit. I want to use this reporting, and I have whole webinars on this, but I just wanted to touch on it just to show you that, yes, it's here, is that I can interact with the data here and ask questions of it and say, you know what, I've run a whole big bunch of stuff over the last couple of months. Show me all of the things that I stopped, I prevented, but for some reason I didn't have the telemetry for. I couldn't see it. So I can use it. If you've ever seen Kibana, this is essentially Kibana laid on top of the platform, is that I can use this data to ask those questions. So I can see stuff that was prevented but not detected. And I select that data point right there. I now have all of the scenarios over the last 90 days that we prevented, but we didn't detect. And one that I really wanted to make sure I hit right here was, there it is, that bypass UAC was one that really troubled me. So I'm able to see that. I can just now zero in on that scenario in particular. Where did it happen? It happened on this endpoint over here, over this assessment here. But what I'm able to see is that, this ran on the last assessment, the last time I did this, but it hasn't happened in the the couple of months prior. So what changed? Just looking at this data, that now I'm able to all of a sudden do this privilege escalation on this endpoint. Well, why did this happen? So give me a little bit more information as to why this happened here. That's one of the things that would be concerning to me as an operator here. I can also pull this data back further and be able to say, again, over the last 1, 2, 3 months, whatever the case may be, show me this data. and show me how much I stopped my prevention, show me how much I saw my detection. What attacker groups am I testing against? What's my control performance over, in this case, I'm looking at just the last month, but show me all of these connectors and how well we're performing. Map that back to MITRE ATT&CK. And clearly I'm not doing very well under anything that's command and control and impact, which is really concerning to me, both on the prevent stack that I have over here. So what am I stopping? And on my detection stack. So again, my command and control, I'm not seeing maybe less than a quarter, and impact, I'm only seeing less than 2% of those attacks. So that's really concerning to me. Show me where these trends are coming from and how we can stop these things. Data-driven decisions for what it is that I want to be able to stop and see. So really taking you on a tour de force here of the different types of capabilities that the platform has. How do you find content? How do you use content? What happens after it operates? How you can analyze the data at a micro level, at a macro level. So much more we can do with this platform. And we're always happy to answer any other questions that you have. I just want to see this just one more here. Can you help us to arrange a POC? That's absolutely part of our normal motions. Anytime I'm working with any new customers, I'm always happy to walk through POCs, depending on what the use cases are. Make sure that you're successful doing that as efficiently as possible. So yes, POC is absolutely part of our normal motions, because you want to make sure that this thing properly operates for what it is that you're trying to gain. So that's as far as I can see all of the questions that we have here. I'm going to pop back over into my my presentation, just close it out with a couple of resources, some other things that you can get here. So there we go, demo time, more AttackIQ resources. Where's my screen? There it is. One thing that I would talk about, especially is maybe you want to get your hands on this a little bit more. Maybe you want to take a look at other types of concepts, capabilities that we have. AttackIQ Academy. Go over to academy.attackiq.com and sign up. It is completely and totally free. Go sign up for it. We have nearly 62,000 students at this point, maybe more. But there's a lot of great courses in there, between things you could do with purple teaming, MITRE ATT&CK, AttackIQ. There's even a few in there that have labs with AttackIQ that would get stood up, and you can take a look at things in a cyber range and start doing stuff there. We just recently released a course on the foundations of AI security, which I took. It's a great course. I definitely recommend it. But it's all just one way that we give back to the cybersecurity community. So definitely feel free to sign up for that. The ART team, the adversary research team, take a look at that site that you see there on the bottom. That's all of the content that I was just talking about. So the way that we built out that ransomware attack graph, all of the different writings that we have, that's our adversary research team. Think of a team of security experts, logging experts, malware reverse engineers, incident responders, cyber threat intelligence experts, all people that are taking all of this content in for you, distilling it, curating it, and then putting usable content for you there on the platform, as well as publishing research that you can then take a look at. And then any other resources that we have, of course, I would include Academy in there, the other resources, the other white papers, ebooks, things that we published. So there's lots of great stuff that you can take a look at. Our YouTube channel has prior ones of these webinars that we have. So there's lots of other content there as well. And I would recommend you take advantage of all of that, as well as, of course, reaching out to us with any questions that you have, especially about using AttackIQ at your organization. I would, on behalf of AttackIQ, thank you for taking the time to sit with me here today, get a better understanding of AttackIQ Enterprise, what it can offer for you. And if anybody has any other questions, I'll be hanging out here for another couple of minutes, and then we'll close out for the day. So thank you so much. All right. I don't see any other questions at this time. I know I just heard a lot of you guys too. As you can see, I'm always super excited about this stuff. So definitely feel free to reach out with any other questions, comments, anything else that you guys want to be able to see here, or be able to better understand, so we can help you to understand your security controls and their performance, and how we can all continue to really enhance and up our game together. So thank you again for taking the time to sit with us to go through this, and everybody have a fantastic day.